So this poem is entitled Find Me. God, I ask you to find me. Under the rubble, under the dust, find me, the minority, the rough, dirty, dark, tainted, slut, BBL hoes, untrustworthy, late, diseased, Negro, nigger, Afro, African American, God, find me. Tell them I'm not extinct. I've changed in slave times from spirituals to hymns and rhymes. I've moved into high places and slots. I am at the top of the music charts. I'm the most talented on the courts and on the field, not to mention the ring. Let's be real, I built this world, and yet I crumble below holding it up. First, they told us we were ugly, monkeys, 3/5 human, skin too dark, butt too big, lips too wide, hair too thick. So I nip and I tuck, I pick and I pluck, and I fuck my beautiful black body up. I pollute my system with all sorts of things. I strive and sacrifice to get that blood bling that my ancestors owned and my brothers died digging up. The money, it leaves my hands and lands in the European. See, America, you were built by me through hundreds of years of slavery. Till this day, there's inequality. So God, find me. Tell them who I am, remind me to remember my legacy and be proud of the advances I've made and never sell myself short because they're afraid the truth will get out. We are not all nappy-headed hoes, and if you were to abort every black baby, crime would not go down. Creativity and innovation would. The Genius Six, current events, all this should show this country's imbalance and malice. Our young boys are tried as adults while proud boys wear ice masks. And remember how they told us we were ugly? Well, people are getting butt implants these days, Botox in the lips, and braids are really popular for people of all shades, suntans and sunburns to be like Tar Baby. Little black girls, remember who you are, young ladies. Little black boys, you have many challenges. I can't really say the word nigga is empowerment. Stop calling young women bitches, hoes, and sluts like Malcolm X said. No success will come until you learn to big us up. And now, you want to do the sitting? You gonna sit? You want to do a sitting?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And so, without further ado, I am really excited to welcome our guest of the hour, Miss Melania Luisa Marte. She is, yes, give it up for Melania.
Thank
Melania is a two-time Audi Award-winning writer, poet, and artist from New York who's living between the Dominican Republic and Texas. Her viral poem, Afro Latina, was featured by Instagram on their IG TV for National Poetry Month and has garnered over 9 million views. Her work has also been featured in Ain't I Latina, Afropunk, The Root, Teen Vogue, Telemundo, Remezcla, Pop Sugar, and elsewhere. Please join me in welcoming Melania Luisa Marte.
you.
And today she'll be discussing her recent publication. What is it called, Melania?
Plantains and Are Becoming. Thank you for being here, y'all. And thank you for your patience as we got our stuff together. There's a lot going on today, but the rain won't stop us. So I'm going to open up with this poem. It's called Abuelita's Garden. Can everyone hear me in the back, or should I yell a little bit? Can you hear me good? Good? Okay. It's called Abuelita's Garden. Dios te me bendiga are her first words to her garden. Early mornings after the roosters are done preaching and the dogs have stretched downward and long, their spines a half moon of fur and muscle, the birds chirp in search of crumbs and water. Pebbling through air and ground, they find Abuelita's basket of scraps left out for them to feed. In her garden, there is always something for someone to feed. No thing is left homeless. Dios te me bendiga. She glides through her garden, broom in hand, a thing hugging leaves and slim branches, an upended bouquet of shrub, greenery embracing a saged wooden pole. Everything about this woman could decompose and leave not a sight of ruin. I admire that. How much of this earth she honors and will one day become. There is a lesson in humility only those who have seen the bottom of an empty stomach can fathom. There is a lesson in survival only those who have seen the earth turn over and spill its fruits can witness. Mouth dry and aching, many have found solace in my abuelita's garden. A water apple, a warm cup of coffee, a sweet sour sop, green bananas, a buttery avocado, an earthy cup of dragon tea, the world's best mangoes. Her garden is a multivitamin. Is breakfast or dinner? Each disciple lucky for the harvesting season. My abuelita, the apothecary, the curandera, the cook. Dios te me bendiga. After the wilderness is done rejoicing, it's her time to speak of God and miracles. Her plants dewy and grateful. Here is a mother who loves them as if they were birthed from her womb and just as wise as the earth they rose from. Abuela affirms them before the sun affirms some more. Dios te me bendiga, mi negra bella. Mi poeta, mi semilla, mi bendecida. Her blessings are a garden of endless love. They tell me live, live because you sprung from me. Live because I dare you to live and thrive. Thrive because the birds, the flowers, the reptiles, we all want to witness your glory. Abuelita's garden is my favorite reminder that you don't need to be one specific kind of magical to bloom. We are all becoming our best, greenest thing. We slouch and freeze. We stunt and cry. We look up and there's a star warming our skin. There's a hand blessing our flesh. From dust to depression we become. From twirls and teachings we rejoice. Dios te me bendiga. And we all bloom. Thank you. So I was originally going to read 2, but I'm actually going to read 3 because I wanted to give y'all this poem. It's called Black Spanish. Some folks may have heard this poem before. It's up on my YouTube, but it's one of my favorites, and I'm in Harlem, and I'm in New York, and I feel like everyone needs this poem. So, Black Spanish. Écate el español mío es negro y tiene un flow ratatá. Y no pide perdón, no se excusa ni se humilla. My Spanish walks into a room and you know it. Leaves her S's at home. Vamos a lo que vinimos, she means it. Her inflection a perico ripiao. If you know, then you know. Nothing realer than some negras entrando al chat. Que se quiten o que recen, que ya vino a perrear. We be twerking at the altar of our own rebirth. Let that beat drop, her knees know exactly what to do. Este ritmo fue hecho pa ella. Aunque le nieguen entrada, la inspiración es ella. Las caderas, todo ella. Y dime qué negra tan bella. Este pelo, este fly, esta percha. Aunque copien, mientan, imiten. Esta chapa, este flow, esta mente. Igual santa y guerrera. When you hear us, you got no choice but to see us. We got accents by the pound. Que si capitaleño, si baeño, o me fui pa Nueva York. In the Bronx hablan Spanglish y lo tiran bien tirao. And here no hay de otra que plantearse bien planteado. Es que nuestro español no es malo. Nuestro español es negro. And you can't love our sauce and not credit the cooks. And my, how that wrist be working. This Spanish so black. You built a whole month out of our culture just to sketch us out. This black so black it translates itself. They got museums of our diamonds and gold. Set up shop at the beach just to stare at our sun. Accents thick as these thighs. And as blessed as this earth, this for negras around the world, we will no longer wait to be adored. We built a black universe and made ourselves the gods. Eto pa Gaileng, pa Sara, pa Goyo, pa Maluka, pa Loraine y Amara, pa Dash, pa Jasmine, pa Jennifer, pa Cardi y la Bad Dominicana, pa Mardra, pa Janelle y pa Yaisa, pa la Gata y la Alida, pa las negras en los barrios y las mamis que nos crían. Period. So this is my last poem before my voice gets hoarse. It's called Climactic Wonders, and we're at the Schomburg, and I think it's kind of perfect. It's after James Baldwin's poem called Staggerly Wonders. So if you haven't read that poem, you might want to check it out after this poem. Climactic Wonders. 1. I always wonder what they think the plantains are doing while they, both thieves and ghosts, haunt the space and land these greens been ordained to grow on. No, there's no church in the wild, but nature has its laws to protect the saints, and what's more holy than growing despite the knife or the rope, lynching the fruit of your labor. Tropical America, they erase. Stolen land, we remember. If the fruit don't fall too far from the tree, explain our diaspora, 'cause we everywhere. 2, I don't know a growing pain stronger than being both living and not human. If the earth swallowed me now, at least I'll know I'll die a real G. No, the ancestors will wait for me at the gates. No, this body might arrive from a lab, but the spirit been homegrown since before the boat. I don't give an F how a colonizer feel. A colonizer ain't done nothing for me but remind me why my homies can't breathe, why my mama got a pain in her back, why my anxiety flares at the siren, the transatlantic human trafficking, the displacement, Jim Crow, revisionist storytelling, 3 countries, still no land to call home. All we own is bullet holes and plastic cups we can't recycle. The Becky, the cops on speed dial, the fluoride in my tooth from all that Project City water, the 4x4 apartment, the pigeons on watch, the drugs in the stairway, the homies growing up in and out of Rikers, the babies waiting for their daddies to come home, the mamas waiting to breathe and take a day off when the daddies come home, the mamas who never get a day off when the daddies come home, the daddies who never get home, the daddies whose bodies make it home, the men who lose their spirit because the white man's prisons beat it out of them, the homies who never get to come home to themselves. You feel me? Yeah. So you see why sometimes we just be dying to come home. How sometimes that is the love story. Black people make it home. The end. All I be trying to do is make it home. How sometimes dying is the first and last time we get to make it home. Maybe that's why we stay so ready to die. I don't know a lullaby more joyful than what the black body sings when it arrives home. Unscathed, bruised, but here. Don't know a story more resilient than being black, both dead and alive. And I hope I survive to see the day. We don't have to die to make it home, all of us. To be black is to mourn every lynching, every broken heart, every time the sun is out and sky is pouring. I know somewhere a black mama is mourning. I don't know where she is, but I am sure, and I am weary. 3, they do not ask me if I am weary, for they do not care to see what they have done to me. They take hostage everything yearning, yearn to hostage everything I am. Everyone yearns to run away from them, to rest and to sleep. I wonder if they know how easily I become mush. How soft this sun body can be, how I am made of more water than soil, how this existence means more to them than me, how I am everything without them, and they are nothing without the bomb, the chain, or the whip. What do they seek to be except all that I am? Why can't they make something up and leave my tired ass alone? What do they cry about if not how they wish the sun loved them like she adores me? What is a weapon if not a cry for love? What is a genocide if not revenge against God? You think you can break something so impermeable. You tried it. You cut my roots and they birthed 1,000 more. 4, I wonder how they think we green things made it. How we turned their dollar signs into culture. How come the cargo's still here? How we sustenance for the poor, how we learn to save a life, to live as if our legacy was laughter. We sway with the wind of the storm, water our leaves with the cry of the heavens, drink mud with the children and listen to their feet dance. I, girl who came from sugarcane and the falling of an empire, No, to grow from the root of my mama's tit. No, to be ripe is to be ready for harvest or death. No, to rest like it is my greatest accomplishment. No, the machete will hurt, but my blood will leave a stain. For I, fruit or starch, I'm ready to die if it means to finally be free. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, that was wonderful. So, I mean, we enjoyed that.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all.
And again, those books in the bookstore right around the corner here, the Schomburg bookstore. And Melania will be doing a book signing after this.
Yes.
So I have a few questions.
Yes, I'm here for them. Let me scoot this way.
All right. So my first question is, when did you start writing poetry? When did this love affair begin?
Oh my gosh. So I've been writing poetry since I was a kid. So the first time I actually wrote a poem, I was like 6 or 7. I spent the summer, that was the summer where my mom worked all summer and she didn't have she didn't have a babysitter. So my brothers were in they were, I think, at like some kind of summer camp, but I couldn't go because I wasn't old enough. And so my mom actually sent me to the Dominican Republic with my aunt. And I was so excited. I was like, I'm about to live my best life without my mom. And actually, I spent the summer at my grandma's house. And at the time, my cousin Maciel, she was like a teenager. And I wanted to be just like her. You know, like when you have you're like a kid and you meet you have an older cousin or something and they're just so like fabulous, and she was so fabulous and she had a boyfriend and she would write him love poems. And I got in so much trouble for this because I was like, I wanted to be just like her. So everything she did, I did. And she was writing these poems and I would like copy them. And I was also practicing my Spanish. So I thought my mom would be proud because I'm like here writing these love poems in Spanish, which was my second language. So I was just like, I was like, my mom's going to be so excited that I'm learning how to write in Spanish. But she wasn't because the poems were about like kissing a boy under a mango tree. Because my cousin Maciel would literally go and hide out and sneak behind my grandma's back, and she would go to this they had my grandma's mango tree in the backyard, and she would meet her little boyfriend there. And that's where they would have their little kissing sessions, and she would like give him these love poems. So the first poem I wrote was actually copying. It was plagiarized. I plagiarized my cousin's poem, and it was about her kissing a boy under a mango tree. And my mom found it in my luggage when I got back. She was just like, oh my God, you're too young for this. And she was like, I might have to whoop you for this. Like, she was just like, she couldn't even fathom,
So she thought you had kissed the boy?
She thought it was, me kissing a boy. And I was like 7. Yeah, I was like, exactly. So my mom was like, is this what you were doing while I'm here, working? But her reaction, she was shocked. She was upset, all of these emotions. I'm like, wow, poetry is powerful. Because I'm like, words did this to my mom. I had never even seen my mom, because I was a good kid. I never even gotten in trouble. So I never even seen my mom be this upset, especially over a poem. So that, through that rebellion is actually how I was like, there's something here, this power here. I felt so powerful just seeing my mom have that reaction. So somehow I would always come back to poetry.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. And here you are now. And I think I read one of the poems where it was an ode to NYPL.
Yes.
And here we are at the new
Yes.
Center. And so I'm wondering, when did that, begin, and what role did your love of literature and all of that play into, you becoming a renowned poet and author at this point?
Yeah. So the New York Public Library, I grew up on the Lower East Side in the projects, and right across a block down on, it's on the Ave, there's a public library, and I used to always just walk there. As a kid, and Saturdays were my big reading days. I would wake up early, my mom would make breakfast, and then we walk there to the library. And I've always had this fascination with the power of words. And I was always interested in reading. Reading was my escape as a child, especially because my mom worked a lot. I had 2 older brothers, so they were always doing their own thing, and I was always isolated. But through that isolation, I grew to really enjoy picking up a book, lounging, and just reading and immersing myself in these stories. And so I'm super grateful. I think the New York Public Library was such a resource and a safe space for me, and I don't think I would be the writer I am today without it.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is why our libraries need funding. Yes.
And so I want to offer, the audience an opportunity to, ask questions, but I had, maybe I can sneak in one or two, or maybe you can decide what you want to answer.
Okay.
So there's a point in the book where you're talking about, you have a couple of pieces. I think there's one at white parties, there's always a token, and you talk about Sarah and your experience with Sarah. And so I had a question that came up, and I was wondering how you came to a place of not wanting Sarah's acceptance and actually challenging her performative wokeness. At what point, because did you go to a predominantly white school?
So no. So for middle school, I did go to a very white middle school. It was Tompkins Square Middle School, and so there were a lot of white kids. But for the most part, all of elementary school, I was around black and brown kids. So I didn't really understand why the Sarahs were so intrigued by girls like us. Especially because I grew up in New York City, and it was just everybody, it was diverse, but I didn't really understand that until I got older, and the Sarahs started sort of probing, I like your hair and your texture, can I touch it, and things like that, and always the friendliness, but also this sort of tokenization that happens, and it happens very innocently, because whiteness has a way of sort of victimizing itself as it is being violent. And I was, so the poem is really an experience I had in Texas, where I was at a party, and it was mostly white. And it was this sort of exchange happening that I was just I didn't sign up for this, but I know this is something that happens often, and I know that y'all like to do this to us, specifically to the black girls. And so I wanted a poem that talked about what that feels like, right? Being used as a couch, being used as some object, being used as a scapegoat or something to make your white friend feel cooler because she's around one black person, and suddenly she feels cooler, and suddenly she feels like an ally, and she's down for the people, and it's almost like her charity work for the year. And yeah, so I feel like so many people felt that, and it needed to be said, and the poem goes there.
Yeah, it does. You guys gotta check it out. So I'll just ask this one last question. Hopefully, you can give us a brief response, and then I'll have time for maybe 1 to 2 questions, depending on how long it takes, because we only have about 5 minutes left. Okay.
I'll be brief then.
So I was wondering, what was the process like in sharing your story? Because in the book you include so many of aims, so many things that could be seen as shameful experiences that weren't necessarily your own, but your own families, your parents and things like that. So as you did in the migration story of your father, or in Telling Time, were there things to reconcile beforehand with your parents, or during or after the process? And how was it for you to write about those very authentic and difficult experiences?
So the funny thing about being a writer, and I think a lot of writers can relate to this, is that a lot of your family actually don't read your work. They find you're the weirdo of the family, and they're just I think a lot of writers have families who actually don't read a lot. And I think you're sort of that person who's breaking that and trying to mend and make sense of all of the chaos that goes on in your family. And so for the most part, my family they've bought the book, to do their performative, I'm supporting you. But a lot of them actually haven't read my book. But I have had younger cousins who read the book and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even understand. I didn't even know this was happening in our family. I didn't know our family history in that way. And they're just like so grateful that I even wrote about it because they're learning about themselves as well. But like my stepdad, my mom, my brothers, they haven't even read the book. And they have a copy and they're just like, they skim through it and they're just like, oh my God, it's so great that you're like an author. But like, they don't even know if I've written crappy things about them. They have no idea.
And you didn't tell them?
No, I did not. I want them to be pleasantly surprised. I mean, I think for the most part, the poems where I do talk about our family history and things like that, I do give them grace. You know, and a lot of the poems talk a lot about some of the things that, where there is tension with me and my mom, but there's grace. There's sort of space for repair. I try not to dehumanize anyone, especially my family. So even if I do write about them, there is space for them to sort of come back to themselves with a feeling of, you know, we're getting through it, you know? So yeah.
It was beautifully written. So
Thank you.
There's a hand. Okay.
Hi, I'm a journalist. My name is Cece Robert. I work for Ethno Watch. We trace a lot of Black history. Can you tell us your racial ethnicity?
Yeah, so my parents are from the Dominican Republic. We do have some ancestry that is French, African. Most of my family is from Santo Domingo, which is one of the blackest cities in the Dominican Republic. I've never done like a genealogy on my exact percentage of blackness or whiteness or Spanish or whatever you want to call it. But both of my parents grew up in the Dominican Republic, and then they immigrated to the United States. So a lot of, you know, if you notice in the collection, there's a lot of this conversation around Haitian, Dominican, what that conversation is. And it's because my mom, in order to come to the US, first had to fly in through Haiti. So I wanted for there to be a conversation around the island is one island, and it's only divided by a tiny little river, which you can walk across. And a lot of what is considered, you know, the Black ancestry of the island is sort of left to the Haitians to talk about and to celebrate. But there is in fact so much of a rich history on the right side of the island as well that folks are sort of that are erased and are invisibilized. And so a lot of my family are darker skinned from my dad's side. And so I didn't want to pretend as if we are this mixed race and we're not, you know, being honest about how much of our blackness is a part of us and is still within us. And so a lot of my issues with the conversation around what it means to be Dominican is that there isn't enough room for the folks who are racialized as Black wherever they go, you know, to be at the forefront and to speak their truth and to speak about their family's history. I hope that answered your question. Okay.
We may have time for one more question.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth. I love your book.
Thank you.
Especially the one where it says, "My body cries to Megan Thee Stallion."
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I love that line at the end. I read it often, that book, because I wrote that poem. I was actually pregnant with my toddler, and I was pregnant at the time, and Meg had just come out with Body Yaddy. And then shortly after the situation where she got shot in the foot happened, and I was just like, what in the world is she being punished for? And that sort of theme of like her celebrating her body, and then shortly after, here comes this man wanting to, you know, aggress her in this way and belittle her in this way and sort of dehumanize her. And yeah, that sort of theme of, you know, how much Black women fight for ownership of their bodies, and then how much they have to fight to even be good victims after they have been aggressed in those ways. It sort of struck a chord with me, especially in a space where I was dealing with my body changing and creating life. Yeah, it was just like, how could I not? Like, I still, for some reason, every time I listen to the song now, I still get teary-eyed because I'm like, I remember just feeling that vulnerability of like, I want to celebrate my body, and I also want to shelter myself from the world. And I think Black women sort of deal with that on the daily of like, you got this body yaddy, you want to show it off, but you're also like, there's this repercussion that can happen, this punishment that can happen for having the body yaddy that God has given you, you know? And so we're constantly dealing with how do we be confident, but also protect ourselves from a world that doesn't want us to feel confident, you know, wants to use our bodies, but doesn't want us to be able to tell the world about our bodies. So, yeah, crazy times.
Okay. We have a young voice, I'm going to
I was wondering about the title of your book. What made you choose it?
Plantains and Are Becoming. We had gone through some titles, but really I loved it because in Spanish the translation is Al plátano volvemos, and it's sort of like, you know, from the plantains we come, into the plantains we go forward, and it's sort of us reminding us that our roots are something that stay within the soil. And so in order for us to become, we do have to find those roots, you know, and plantains are very rooted. And they are, you know, I was able to learn how to farm plantains on the island, and it just gave me so much strength and so much perseverance as I was writing these poems, because there is this beautiful, I mean, it's just throw it in the soil. You don't got to do too much. You know, they duplicate, they replicate themselves, and they're just very true, like I say, very true to the soil. And yeah, so I always was just like, I want plantains in there somewhere, you know, because I want us to remember that we do have these emblems that we can use to remind ourselves where we come from and how our people survived. Plantains became a survival food for our ancestors on the island. So yeah.
Thank you so much.